Well, good morning, curd nerds. Welcome to another episode of Ask The Cheeseman. And I can see that we've got a few people on the chat already, which is fantastic. Everybody was very eager. I'm just checking the stream. Yeah, it looks like it's all good. So, welcome to the show. This week, of course, with all your questions, it'll be an action-packed week. Let me see what's going on here. Oh, no, it seems to be okay. Can I have a sound check? Can everybody say, whoever's there, first one in, whether the sound is working okay? Oh, good. All right, fantastic. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Okay, got some news. Oh, hang on. Let's start the main intro. I always get carried away. Here we go. Let's start the show. Well, g'day, curd nerds. G'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. And I'm back. Now, we've got some, sorry, before we start, this is the 40th episode of Ask The Cheeseman, which has been going strong every Wednesday, except the ones where I say that we're not doing them for whatever reason. But yeah, great achievement. I think that Kim and I are really proud to bring this show to you every week, and it helps the cheesemakers around the world. So yeah, really good. No new patrons this week, so no shout outs. But just remember that you can support the show financially by popping over to patreon.com/Greenier Gavin, and you will be able to donate on a monthly basis as little as $1 US. And during the show, also, there is the super chat, which is the little dollar sign down there. You can donate during the show, and I get most of the proceeds, and YouTube just takes a fee processing cut. So they're the couple of ways that you can support the show, obviously, other than going to our shop, littlegreenworkshops.com.au, and picking up any cheese making supplies there. Now, I also have some news, so I'm just going to play that. Hopefully this works.
I have a headache.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all.
What's the matter?
I have a headache.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all.
There you go. So diagnosis from the other day, for those who watch the show regularly, the MRI scan that I had came back negative for any tumours, just like good old Arnie there. And thankfully, the diagnosis is just basically a condition called new daily persistent headaches, which is an autoimmune disease. So I'm back on the medication, unfortunately, to get rid of these bloody things. And really, what I've had to do is take a leave of absence from work, unpaid leave from my normal day job. And basically, I'll be going back after I get better. And so that's scheduled for the first week of February 2018. So I'm off for 3.5 months to recover from this condition. It's one of those things where you can't really tell just by looking at the person unless I'm in really bad pain. But yeah, it is a bit riff. Yeah, unpaid. I don't have any long service leave. I had to take the long service leave, MJ, last time when I had it last year, and then it got better, and then it got worse again, obviously. So I used up all my long service, so unpaid leave. So we're living off the proceeds of our shop and anything that YouTube throws our way. So there you go. Yes, it is a bit rough, but that's what happens. Anyway, let's get on to your questions. First of all, a shout out to Kep. Thank you very much for that $2 super chat. Really appreciate it. A little bit goes a long way around here. Okay, so let's start with some questions. Got a few. So let's start with NKY Homesteading. We recently moved and had to store some aging cheddars at normal refrigeration temps. Will it continue to age now? It's back in the cheese cave. Sounds good here. Yes, it will. No problems. All that happened there when you put it into the normal fridge is you slowed down any bacterial activity, converting the fats into lipids, but it should just kick off again once it gets to the warmer temperature. So you've got lots of hellos. I won't shout them out. I will as we go through the comments. Where we got? Martin says, hey, Gavin, I have a question about calcium chloride and organic cream lime milk, pasteurised but not homogenised. I tried to make your fast mozzarella and use cream lime milk, adding calcium chloride, but the curd set immediately when I add the rennet and it seemed like it was too hard. I could barely cut it. So my question is, should I be adding calcium chloride when using this milk and making cheese? It doesn't sound like a problem about the calcium chloride, Martin. It sounds like you've added too much rennet. It does usually set quite quickly using my recipe. Now, remembering the rennet that I use for that quick mozzarella is from Rs 50. It's a tablet, rennet tablet, and I only use half a tablet, which is actually for 12 litres of milk. So I am over renneting, but it sounds like you're over renneting too much somehow. You're going to have to play around with the rennet. You can leave the calcium chloride out if you think that will help, but you're going to have to experiment. I do think you're using a little bit too much rennet there. Okay, where are we? Right, the one after Kep's kind donation. Eduardo, good morning to you. Hey, Gavin, are there any health risks for eating too much cheese, and how much could I eat per day? Well, the advice I got from the neurologist, now I'm not a medical professional. I can't tell you your personal circumstances. He said cheese was okay, especially for this condition anyway. And look, there is some cholesterol risk to eating too much cheese. There's saturated fat in cheese. However, many cultures throughout the world, including European cultures, have been eating cheese every single day of their life, and they live to be a ripe old age. You look at it; it's called the Mediterranean diet, right? It's what they eat. Well, not anymore, but what they used to eat at the turn of last century. Healthy foods, everything in balance. But we don't eat cheese every single day. Even though I did have a little bit of Port Salut on some toast yesterday morning for breakfast. It was absolutely delicious. Thanks to Kim. She whipped that up for me. So that was really good. But yeah, look, everything in moderation will be fine for you. Okay, Charlie. G'day, Charlie. How are you? And what have we got here? Doug says, Gavin, I made your boudicaes about 7 days in. Bubbles and moisture started showing up under the plastic. Took it out and dried it overnight at room temperature. Ballooned it, filled soft. Is a lost cause? Unfortunately, it probably is. Sounds like you got a chloroform infection, which is basically from the milk itself. Don't know what type of milk you've used. You haven't said. But, yeah, definitely I wouldn't eat it. When they blow up like that within 7 days, they're a lost cause. If it's unpasteurized milk, usually the milk's got this bacteria in it that's an unwanted bacteria, unfortunately. And Kim saying hello. Thank you. Hi, Kim. What have we got there? Lactobacillus prime. Love the guest taste test you recently did, Gavin. Yeah, it was a bit of a spur of the moment thing. We just had finished a barbecue because it was warm enough to have cook some food outside. And I said, hey, guys, do you guys want to do the taste test? So they jumped in. I know my dad's response was, for those who have a cheese connoisseur palate, was a little bit underwhelming, but hey, it didn't really matter. He loved it. So everybody, and he took a piece home. So that's praise enough, I think. Okay, Heather, how are you? When you bribe, I think that means brine. Do you keep cheese in the brine, in the cheese cave, or at room temp? Depends on your room temperature. The ideal temperature for brining is around 13 degrees Celsius, which is 55 Fahrenheit. That's the ideal. That's when you get maximum salt absorption into the cheese. So, yep, so hopefully that answers your question. Next question is from Peter. Peter says, for some reason, my camembert is only growing mold on its sides. Any ideas on the cause or the cure? Yes. So what can happen there, Peter, is that it's not getting enough oxygen to create the bacteria. Plus, the top and the bottom are probably a little bit too moist. You'll find that the sides usually dry out a lot quicker. And what you may have to do if there's no mold, what I did last time with the brie that I made, we're going to have a taste test this weekend, is patted the surfaces that weren't growing mold down with paper towel just to dry them off. Make sure that your ripening box, if you're using any sort of plastic mat, then that tends to collect moisture. So just wipe it all dry. So usually that's what the issue is. It's usually too moist. What you can do to get the humidity up in the box, though, to encourage the cultures to grow a bit better, is to get a moist piece of cloth, wring it out until you can't wring it out anymore, just so it's wet, and put it underneath the mat, and put the mat on top, and then put the cheese on top of the drying mat. And you'll find that you'll get enough humidity in the box then, and it'll create the right atmosphere. Remember, it's got to be between 90 and 95% humidity for camembert. Hope that helps you out, mate. Lactobacillus Prime says, also love the banter on the fridge being a little bit too smelly sometimes. Yes, Kim often comments about my smelly cheese fridge. It's just the cheese is ripening in it. And usually it's only when there's any sort of mold ripened cheeses. If it's a camembert or brie, it'll tend to be an ammonia smell. If it's the Brevibacteria linens, then it'll pong a bit from like smelly socks. I think it's sulfur. No, it's not sulfur dioxide. Can't remember the gas, but yeah. Brian says, hope your headaches aren't due to an allergy to cheese. No, it's not. I've been checked. So thankfully, blessed are the cheesemakers, we'll be fine. MJ says, Doc told me that sugar can have a worse effect than cheese. Yeah, definitely. Where are we up to? My chat keeps jumping around. Kep, good morning to you. Gavin, is it 2 teaspoons or 2 tablespoons with 1 cup of water for a simple brine solution? And how much vinegar when you want to clean mold off? Okay, good question, Kep. For a simple brine solution, 2 teaspoons to 250 mils of water. So that's 1 cup of water. So 2 teaspoons, make sure it's all dissolved. Now, if you're going to do vinegar, if you've got some mold issues as well, then I tend to put a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of vinegar into that simple brine, and then that'll wash all that off as well. And the salt helps the cheese to extract moisture as well. Harvey says, hey, Gavin, if you store a maturing cheese at 37.5 degrees Celsius, specifically this temperature, because that's the optimum temperature for enzyme activity. Okay, is that the only part of the question? If you do store it at that temperature, what tends to happen, and I've seen it happen, the fats tend to sweat out of the cheese. It may be optimum temperature for the enzyme activity, but you don't want that. You want it to slow right down after pressing, because too much will make it go bitter, make cheese go bitter, it'll make it sweat the fats out of the cheese, and you'll see blobs of fat in a liquid form forming on the outside of the cheese. You don't want it to mature too quickly. You want it to age slowly. Cheese making is a test of your patience, basically. So you'll find that often is a lot better, keeping it at 13 degrees Celsius or 55 Fahrenheit. Look, the temperature range for bloomy cheeses are a lot lower. You're talking 6 to 7 to 8 degrees Celsius. And for hard rind cheeses or hard cheeses, it's around 13 degrees Celsius. It's rough guide. Okay. Andreas says, hi, you legend. Right back at you, mate. What is the biggest hurdle you have to overcome to getting started with cheese making? Well, our biggest hurdle when I first started was actually getting the cultures and the rennet and that sort of stuff. It's not readily available. Well, it wasn't when I first started back in 2009. It wasn't readily available. There weren't many cheese making specialist shops around, which is one of the reasons that Kim and I started up our little shop, Little Green workshops.com.au, and so we could start selling stuff to around Australia. And then consequently, because of the popularity of the cheese channel here on YouTube, we do ship internationally. We've had more international orders this week than we did domestic ones. So thanks for the good work. Yeah, it's getting supplies. IOR says more people should go to Patreon then. Yes, that would be lovely. That'll keep the show going for sure. MJ says she got both cats watching with me now. I'll promise them the dogs are locked out, so they won't have any issues. Michael says hello. Where am I up to? Lost it. Michael says hello. Deep South Texas says first time watching live. Thanks for all the info. I'm going to give cheese making another try after a 3-year wait. Yeah, give it a go. Start simple and get a little bit of experience and work your way up to some of the more difficult cheeses. You only learn through experience, and that it doesn't matter how many courses you go on, unless you practice yourself after the course, then you never master the skill. And it is a skill to be mastered, to get it down pat. I've made over nearly 150 different types of cheeses now, and you learn a little bit every time you make it. Okay. Heather says thanks. Thanks, Heather. Roy says g'day, Kim, and g'day, Gavin. Hope you get well soon. Technical issues over the last few weeks. Unable to join the chat. Thanks for the tips for Camembert. It came out great. No problems at all, Roy. Darren says, hi, Gavin. Is it all right to use plastic utensils to stir your milk, or should I only use stainless steel? Look, there's two schools of thought. So plastic can get scratches in them, and bacteria can harbour in the scratches, and it's very hard to sanitize any plastic material because when you boil it, then unfortunately it melts and warps. Found that with any cheese basket, anything plastic like that. I prefer stainless steel because it doesn't get scratched readily, and you can sanitize it by boiling. If you want to use a bleach solution or iodophor, then plastic may be okay, but it depends on how deep the scratches are in the plastic. That's my little bit of advice for that. Mimi says, hope you get well soon, Gavin. Thank you. This will take quite a while. Like I said, at least 3 months before they go away totally. Inu says, I finally tried to make cheddar, but it's really squishy. Did I ruin it? Very hard to tell without any more specifics. Yes, it needs to be pressed heavily. Cheddar is one of those cheeses that the curd should be fairly dry after the cheddaring process when they go into the press in their cubes, and you've got to press it at least 22 kilos, which is 50 pounds of pressure on top of that. And Kim says the smelly cheese, if I can find her, where'd she go? The smelly cheese, but it tasted so good. Yes, it was lovely. That Port Salut was something to die for. It was a lovely cheese. Lizard said, you look like a retired bodyguard. Oh, thanks. Never done it in my life. Tim says, just recently found your channel and I'm turning to a curd nerd. Yeah, it can be catching. It's like a disease. I tried my hand at mozzarella, but having difficulty getting a string cheese texture. Any recommendations? Depends on the type of mozzarella. There's two types: quick and traditional. Traditional, you have to make sure that the acid level gets down to at least between 5.3 and 5 pH before you can stretch it. And with the quick mozzarella, you got to make sure you add just the right amount of citric acid to get the same acid levels quickly. It won't stretch if it's higher than that acidity range, so above 5.3. Okay. Wreath and Rifle Forge. Hi, Gavin. Love your quick mozzarella recipe. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's I had to change it when I first started making it. I only used quarter of a rennet tablet. Didn't work out every time. But once I started using half a rennet tablet, no problems at all. The Wabbit Slayer says, can you explain any dangers of eating the rind of any mouldy cheese or washed cheeses? Some folks may be a little apprehensive about your explanations. Certainly. So the molds that you introduce into cheese making are all safe for human consumption. And it depends on your palate whether you eat the rind of the mouldy cheese. So the rind is actually where most of the flavour is. If you look at things like brie, you sure the paste is delightful and it's smooth and delicate, but the rind adds the balance. The white rind around those cheeses add the balance to the cheese tasting experience. Now, when it comes down to wash rind cheeses or red cheeses, red mold cheeses, they're known, that mold has a flavour of its own as well. And the rind, you can see the definition of the rind. If you have a look at the Port Salut video, which I released on the weekend, you'll see that it had a half a centimetre thicker area where I'd been washing it with the brine solution. Now, that part of the cheese is quite salty, and it is really delicious, and then complements itself with the paste, the smooth paste that's in the middle that had a little bit of eye formation. It is absolutely amazing. So, yeah, eat the mouldy rinds. They are delicious and they're good for you. Unless, of course, you've got an allergy to penicillin. With some of the cheeses, you'd have to test if your mouth goes numb or anything like that when you're eating cheese. Do not eat it any further. You may have an allergy to penicillin. Penicillin. Okay. Great question, Rabbit Slayer. NKY homesteading. Can Havarti age too long? I've had some aging for 3 months now and wonder if I need to pull it out and to store it in the everyday fridge. That would be my recommendation because keep it put it in the fridge now, because Havarti has a tendency to, because it's supposed to be a really mild cheese. That's kind of what you're looking for. Yeah, but if you age it too long, it tends to get stronger. Now, if it was a Gouda, then no problems at all. Gouda can age to, at least a year and be really strong in flavour, or you can have it within a few months and have a milder flavour. But Havarti is supposed to be a delicate cheese. But look, every cheesemaker has their own method on aging. So if you want to age it some longer to see what it really tastes like, go for it. I think it'll be fine. MJ put up the Patreon link. Thanks, MJ. David says, what's a good first cheese to make? I'm assuming mozzarella, farmer's cheese, or ricotta would be a good place to start. I've got a couple of others to add to the list. Mozzarella is really not a good cheese to start with because more often than not, if you haven't had any cheese making experience, it tends to fail. I would say paneer is a great place to start and salt it. In its natural form without any salt on paneer, it's a very bland cheese. It's usually cooked in curries and stuff like that because it takes on the salt from the curry and the spice flavour. But paneer with a little bit of salt over it, very nice. Halloumi is an easy one to start with, of all cheeses. Very simple. That would be a good place to start. And, of course, good old ricotta, sweet ricotta or whey ricotta. If you've never made cheese before, stick to sweet ricotta. It's just milk with a bit of acid added to it. Drain it off. But, yeah, too much acid can make ricotta very rubbery. But anyway, yeah, there's some suggestions for you, David. Filthy Mister. Hi, Gavin, love your videos. Which similar cheeses can be made at the same time? Weird. I have before made some I've made some cheese at the same time, so it's really hard. You're going to have to. I've made 2 batches on the stove at the same time, but it does get a bit confusing. You're going to make sure you have recipes on both sides, and you may be stirring both at the same time with 2 hands for a long time. So you're going to have to look at your recipes and kind of match up the timings to see if you can do that. I remember making a camembert and a cheddar at the same time, and I really had to work hard to get the 2 cheeses to work, because I didn't want any cross-contamination at all into the cheddar from the Penicillium candidum from the other one. MJ said, I'd totally be a patron, but a bit skint. Hey, look, doesn't matter. Hoodoo? Oh, can't you pronounce it? I'm curious. Is it possible to reuse cheese culture or some method of preserving the culture for future cheeses? I think you mean from take some from the old cheese and put it in new cheese. You can't really do that. You can with molds, but with the starter cultures themselves, they tend to convert into enzymes after they've finished doing their converting the lactose into lactic acid. They die off and convert into enzymes which break down the fats in the cheese. So very hard to retrieve them from an old cheese. Couple of cheats methods. For a mesophilic starter culture, you can use buttermilk. So buttermilk off the shelf usually has enough mesophilic culture left in it. If you want to try and find a thermophilic culture, then what you can do is use yogurt. So a really tangy yogurt will have good thermophilic in there, and you can use those as well. So there's some tips, or you can use kefir grains. A really good book to dig up if you want to just go natural cheese making from scratch is by David Asher. I'll just grab it. I think I've got it here. There we go. It's on the bookshelf. David Asher, make sure the light's not shining. It's called The Art of Natural Cheese Making. He uses raw milk in all his recipes, and he makes his own cultures using kefir grains and either buttermilk or even sometimes yogurt as a starter. So really good book. Go and pick that up. Not affiliated with it or anything, but I will put an Amazon affiliate link into the description once the show goes into its archive, so you can check that out. So hopefully that's answered your question. Heather, how do you decide between animal and vegetable rennet? Do you use animal for long maturation cheeses or still veggie? Look, I tend to stick to the same rennet that works, and I use what do I use? Microbial rennet, which is a form of vegetarian rennet, and it works fine. Never have any issues with it. Look, traditionalists will go the animal rennet route if that's all they can get their hands on, especially if they've got no natural rennet. They have to go and use the fourth stomach of a baby ruminant, whether it be cow, pig, goat, or sheep, and they get the rennet from there. So they don't have a choice. But if you've got a choice, then vegetable rennet is a suitable alternative. That's all I use. The only difference between animal and vegetable rennet is animal rennet has chymosin and pepsin, the 2 enzymes, and they also have a little bit of lipase in that rennet. It's just naturally occurring, and veggie rennet only has chymosin. So they're the main differences. Really doesn't change. I've never had a bitter cheese by using vegetarian rennet. What book would you recommend for a beginner that hasn't started yet? That's from Michelle. A really good book, and it's an ebook, and I don't have a copy of it. It's called Keep Calm and Make Cheese. It's one I wrote myself, specifically for the beginner, from the experience of probably the first 5 years of cheese making that I had. There is a link to it in the cards. If you go to the card for this video, you'll see the link to to Keep Calm and Make Cheese. Great little book. I think it's $15 Australian, and you can read it over and over again. Sarah says, I've made farmer's cheese last week with parsley, garlic, and chives. Everybody loves it. Success. Thanks for your tips. They were so helpful. No problems at all, Sarah. I'm glad it turned out for you. Barry says, best thing for mozzarella is get a pH meter, then it never fails. That's correct. I did use pH paper, specifically made for cheesemakers, but I found as the curds firmed up, it was very hard to get a reading. I was getting more of a reading from the whey than I was the curds. So a pH meter is essential if you're going to make pasta filata cheeses, so stretchy curd cheeses. Okay. Thanks to NKY Homestead for the $5. Appreciate it. That's a fantastic donation. I'm way behind on these questions, so where are we? How hard is it to make bread cheese, which is the same as, I think it's called Finnish coffee cheese or Scandinavian coffee cheese? A little bit of mucking around. I've got a recipe on little green cheese. Yeah, hey, this URL down here, littlegreencheese.com. Just go and look up coffee cheese in the search, and you'll find a recipe to it from a Scandinavian reader. Carrie Ann, first time viewer. Hi, how are you? Deep South Texas says, can star sand be used to sanitize utensils for cheese making? Not sure what star sand is without going away from the stream and having a look. If it's a sanitizer for home brewing, then possibly, as long as you wash it off and you can't smell any residue at all. Phantom says, how about using terrarium misters for humidity control in one's cheese cave? Yeah, you could if you're making a lot of natural rind cheeses. What I do now, I used to try and do stuff like that in my cheese cave. I found it was so hard to maintain the humidity level, unless you got a professional room, right? If you've got a little bar fridge like I've got to mature cheeses in, it's best to just keep the cheeses in a maturation box. So much easier. Maturation box is a plastic tub that has a lid, and it's got a plastic rack on the bottom. And as long as the cheese is elevated off the bottom so it doesn't swim in any way that comes out of the cheese, then you will find that you'll have no problems at all. The humidity will be high enough. It'll be about 90%, and usually that's pretty good. Okay. Runneris, have you looked into Dazugas cheese recipe? I'm trying to find it. Unable. It's still on my list. I haven't got there yet. But yeah, I'll get there. All right. Hamid, I'm from Algeria. Saw your videos. Can I make mozzarella cheese with goat's milk? Yes, you can. Add a little bit more rennet, and it should set okay. Tips for beginners cheesemakers. Kerry Ann Hayhurst. Go and watch all my videos. There's a tip for you, and you'll learn. There is a playlist called Start Here on the channel, and there are lots of tips for beginner cheesemakers in those videos. Okay, Kim's put the link up. That's fantastic. What inspired me to start making cheese? It's all in the ebook. Tells you what I did and why I did it. Talking myself into buying a pH meter. Is there one you recommend? Yeah, you're going to have to. There are some pH meters out on, say, eBay and stuff like that, are there to test the pH of your aquarium. Don't get those, because the probe's up. It's not even a probe. It's just a sensor, and it's really weird. So there are professional cheese making ones. They are expensive. They're over $200 Australian anyway. I don't have one for that very reason, because I don't make pasta filata cheeses that often. I don't have a brand that I can recommend, because you really do. They're finicky looking things, and they are very expensive. So fortunately, I can't do any recommendations on that. The Wabbit Slayer. I purchased my second cheese book over the weekend, Home Cheese Making by Ricky Carroll. Yeah, look, that's a great book for beginners as well. Goes quite in depth on the techniques and what equipment you need and all that sort of stuff. Unfortunately for the rest of the world, other than the US, it's all in imperial or US measurements. There are no metric measurements within the book at all, so you have to convert it for any other country in the world. That's the only thing I found bad about that book. She really didn't think outside the square and look at what the rest of the world was doing. So that's why I made it a point in my book, Keep Calm and Make Cheese, to make sure I had both units of measurement, both metric and US or imperial. So I find that books that have dual measurements are better books because you don't have to muck around halfway through your process. Paul says, my mozzarella recipe says specifically to always use non-homogenized milk, but another recipe I've said it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if the milk is homogenized. When I make quick mozzarella, Paul, I use pasteurized homogenized milk. Works out fine every time. No issues whatsoever. Kim, do you have his coffee cup on Amazon since I'm in the US? Kim should have a link there to the merch store. It's on Cafe Press. Yeah, there is a link to the coffee cup, certified curd nerds. In fact, it's in one of the cards for this video. I don't know if you can see the cards on the video at the moment, but they're certainly there. So there's a link to the merch store where you can buy T-shirts. Not this one, unfortunately. This is from a Monty Python shop. I just stumbled across it. Okay, where are we up to? Oh, yes, Kim did remind me that we do have some copies of Art of Natural Cheese Making on our store. Okay, Blake says, love the channel, got some kits this weekend, trying to start soon. What kind of refrigeration system you have, or do you have for making aging cheese? What does your fridge look like? If Kim hasn't done it already, there should be a link to my cheese fridge on what it is and how it works and all that sort of stuff. It's got an external thermostat. Blake, you can get your hands on one of those. They're pretty easy. You just plug your fridge into it, put the probe inside the fridge, and when it gets to the right temperature, or if it starts getting too high, fridge turns on, lowers the temperature back to 13 for you. So if Kimmy, you could put the link up for that. Ara says, hi, Gavin. How you doing, mate? I'm doing well, thank you very much. Better I know the diagnosis of my headaches. Ricky Carroll is the Mad Millie US version. Yeah, I think so as well. Look, it's great for starters. They have some fantastic recipes on her website. I think she's since retired and her daughter's taken over the business. But yeah, really good recipes. I did pick up the provolone recipe from there, the second one I tried, which the video hasn't been released yet because the cheese is still maturing. So once that's mature and I know it's okay, I'll release the video for that one as well. Star Sand, second question. Sorry, that's from Mark. I don't know what that is. Yes, I have asked it. So no rinse sanitizer cheese making is users. Well, if that's the case and people are using it and it's okay, then I don't know. I haven't used it myself. Thank you, Kim. Oh, there's some thank yous going on. Lovely. Calico says, any cheese in particular that is good and can be made without cultures, mesophilic, perhaps only rennet, perhaps calcium chloride and citric acid. Yes. So one of my absolute favourite cheeses to make without any cultures, just using rennet and a really good milk, is halloumi. Halloumi is a Cypriot creation. Well, it's actually, there's versions throughout the Middle East, but halloumi is it's a registered cheese from Cyprus. I think it's the only one out of Cyprus. It's a non-melting cheese, but it can be grilled in a frying pan called a saganaki. And yes, it is a delicious cheese that you can make. And I've actually got two videos on halloumi, one using a Mad Millie kit and one very similar recipe that I created myself just by watching some videos filmed in Cyprus of a Turkish lady and a Greek lady making them on both sides of the border there in Cyprus. I Suck at Gaming, hello, how are you? Peter says, any idea on the release date of your Keep Calm Make Cheese book #2? I would like to buy it. I'd love to sell it to you, but it's not written yet. Now that I've got a bit of time on my hands, maybe, depends on the Christmas rush in the shop, I'll get back into writing that. When are we getting a Kasu Mazu recipe? Marshall, we're never getting one. Okay, just be resigned to the fact I'm never making that cheese ever, or even eating it. Okay, Paul says thank you. Hard cheeses. Oh, Calico says. Look, if you use buttermilk as the starter culture, then you can make any of the hard cheese ranges that ask for a mesophilic culture. That would work. Michelle says, since it's Oktoberfest, are you going to make beer or a port wine cheese? Funny you should ask. On the slate, one of the next videos I'm going to be making is either Drunken Cow or Drunken Goat. Yes, look out for that one soon. I'll be making it over the next, during this week. It probably won't be released for about 2-3 weeks. See how it goes after it dries. Okay, but yeah, good call out. Should I ask about a certain DOC styled square formed cheese here? Would that be Tellagio? I do actually have a Tellagio mold that I found. I bought it from a rival company that we compete against, but I do have a Tellagio mold, and that's a very stinky cheese too. I don't have the reeds that it goes on, the traditional reeds, but I could make a square-typed washed rind. But I think Kim wants me to hold off on washed rind cheeses for a little while because she's not quite used to the Port Salut smell from the last time I made. Kim just put up the cheese fridge link, which is fantastic. Filthy Mister says, which cheese making books have you had the most success with? Well, besides my own, there's another good book, and I'll just grab that too. This one's by, which way are we going? That way. Deborah Amron's Boys. 200 easy homemade cheese recipes. And this is a good one. We've got this in our shop as well for sale, the hard book. So, yeah, a lot of great recipes. I have been using quite a few. Most of the recipes, however, are for 16 litres of milk. Now, I don't have a pot that's that big. So I've been converting some of the recipes and changing some of the processes because I know they're not quite right. I've been changing the quantity down to 10 litres. And you'll see a few, I would say probably 10% of the recipes I've adapted out of this book, changed them, whatever I needed to do to make them fit for purpose. But yeah, some great recipes in here, a lot of unusual ones that I could never get out of the Ricky Carroll book, or there's another book by Tim Smith about artisan cheese making, but I found a lot of those recipes in that book were all wrong. They just didn't work out. Okay. So yeah, that was a good question. Okie Alternative says, what in your experience is the best type of vegan cheese, soy or nut? Actually, there's a company in Germany called Cashew Bert or Cashew Bear. They make a wicked cashew camembert. I think they've got a Facebook page, or they might have a normal page, but Cashew Bear, go and check them out. They do some amazing things. They do sell cultures within the EU, but I don't think they export them to Australia or US. But yeah, I haven't eaten any vegan cheese or soy cheese. Tofu's about as close as I've got to it. But I do have a vegan cheese kit, as you can see. Oh, there it is, up there. And I'm going to be experimenting with that when I get some free time, and see what sort of goodies I can make there. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, and it's not real cheese. I'll just state that it's not real cheese because it's not rennet and milk. But I'm going to give them some of them a go. Okay, I think I missed one here. Sharon, glad to see you too. I can see you're a big follower on some of the Facebook stuff I do. You have a question. Have you ever heard cheese of or made raw pressed clabber or kefir cheeses? What flavorings do you suggest? Yeah, clabber is basically raw milk that's coagulated all by itself, the acid from the bacteria that are naturally occurring in it. Basically, acid set the cheese, and basically when you've got that, it's basically milk that's gone off. But you can hang it in a tight cheesecloth, and basically get a rudimentary, what's called labner out of it, or it's called clabber cheese, and just salt it as you normally would. It's very strong stuff. It's the original farmhouse cheese. And look, you can add any sort of fresh herbs or spices to it to spice it up a little bit. Michelle, Gavin, are you ever going to make historical cheeses from over 100 years ago? Look, I'll leave that to the Townsend's channel. Over there on Townsend's, they do authentic, I think, 18th, 19th century US style food, and they do a really good job of it. They have done some cheeses there from over 100 years ago. So I'm not going to step on his feet. I'm just going to keep doing recipes that people know and kind of want. But I'm not going to be a historical channel. You want that, pop over to Townsend's, great YouTube channel. I watch it regularly, and he does a really good job over there, doing all sorts of authentic recipes. Dustin said, glad I caught you this week. Since you went to daylight savings, you start right as I get off work. Completely missed you last week. Well, that's good. Yeah, daylight savings works sometimes. Okay. Where are we up to? Kevin says, hi, Gavin. Greetings from official Swiss curd nerd. How are you? Kim's put the link up to that book. Fantastic. Dustin says, glad I caught you this. Oh, I already said that. Oh, there it is. There's the question I'm looking for. Any place you know of to get propionic shamani in a somewhat small quantity. I hate to waste it if it doesn't work for me, and I find a lot of them are huge sachets. Yeah, Kim can put a link up. We do sell it. I think it's for 100 litres of milk, which is the size of all the cultures. Most of the cultures we sell, we tend to sell them on the lower side, lower quantities, because exactly as you found, Dustin, they do. If you don't make the cheese over and over again, then they tend to go out of best before date. But remembering, if you keep all of your cultures in a little jar like this one, this is a little sterile jar. I tip the packet straight into these and screw the lid on tight. They will last up to a year at least after the best before date. Now, not if you're a purist and you want to throw your cultures away after the best before date, then go ahead. It's up to you. I always keep mine longer. I've been using them that have been expired for a year, and they work fine. I just add a little bit more just in case. But if you find that it's still powdery and it hasn't gone gluggy or got moisture into the culture, then it should be perfectly fine. I have no problems with that at all. Where are we up to? Sorry, the chat was going flat out there for a sec. Kim, can you please share the link for Gavin's book? I think she's already done that. There we go. What brand and weave cheesecloths do you like? Need to order some. Well, there's two types I found on the market. There's a tight weave cheesecloth, which is like butter muslin. It's very close knit. You can't really see through the cloth at all. And it's good for draining soft cheeses. If you want to drain hard cheeses or line your molds with those cheesecloths in a loose weave cheesecloth, you can actually see through it, only faintly. But yeah, you get a lot of better drainage there. But if you've got a soft cheese and you try to strain it through a loose weave cheesecloth, then you will find that you will have some issues. You'll lose a fair bit of the proteins through it. We do have both types in the store. Okay. Jim's got a question. What's the best way to slowly raise temperatures when cooking cheese? The requirements seem very specific. The method's rather awkward. Well, there's three ways that I know of that are really easy. So I use the pot on a pot method. So in a pot with some about 2 inches of water, and then I put my cheese pot on top of that. I've got a video for that called How to Heat Your Milk. And I find I get pretty good control out of that. I heat the temperature up. The water boils in the bottom pot, and the steam goes and hits the top cheese pot. And basically, it's like a steam jacket, right? And then when I want to stop the milk from heating up completely, I just simply turn the heat off on the bottom one, and you get a variation between 1 or 2 degrees Celsius, but that's okay. and the milk will stay at that temperature because it's still got the warm water underneath it, stays at that temperature during the acidification stage and the renneting stage. And it's only after I've cut the curd that I'll check the temperature again. Then if I need to change it, then I'll change it out. I'll turn the heat back on again and regulate it. The other way is to put the cheese pot full of milk into the kitchen sink and around it, make sure you got the plug in, put hot water until it comes up to temperature, and then pull the plug out, and then that milk will stay the right temperature. Or there's a newer method, you can use a sous vide, which is a stick that you put into the water in the sink, and that'll heat the water up and stay at the right temperature. You can set it to stay at the same temperature, and your milk will stay the same temperature as well. Okay. Kim says, sorry, Gavin, what culture link did you want me to put up? The Propionic Shamani, please, Kim. Dustin says, he's talking to Kevin. All right, sorry. John, how are you, John? With you being a Weber, need to make some Weber smoky grilled cheese sandwiches or raclette on the Weber Barbie, which has 1B. Yeah, we've got. I've been looking into the smoker. I'm gonna bust out one of those and make something. I've got a hooded barbecue, so I can use a little smoker box. Just produces the smoke. Put the cheese on the grill, not have any of the burners on, and that'll cold smoke it. Well, we'll see how that works. We'll see what we can do there. Okay. Danica says, hi, Gavin. Hi. NKY says, how many times will you reuse cheesecloth before you toss it? Only when they get holes in them or they're really frayed. That's the only time I toss them. Remembering that you can use loose weave cheesecloths as cloth banding for harder cheddar style cheeses as well. Thermophilic Shamani, no, propionic Shamani. Kevin. Phil, do you have any more tricks for washing the cheesecloth? I do have tricks. Basically, pop the cheesecloth once it's used, just in the warm sink of water, get all the cheesy bits out, and then just give that a good wring. Pop it in the normal clothes washing machine at the fastest wash you can. It's about a 30-minute express wash in our one. Don't put any detergent in whatsoever, and then put a cup of vinegar into the final rinse, so that where you would normally put the fabric softener, put white vinegar, and then that'll do it on the rinse run. And then they come out smelling fresh, no cheese on them. Hang them up in the sun or any other place. Don't tumble dry them because they'll shrink. And they'll turn out fine, really good. Sharon says, I just beeswaxed my first Gouda and it's aging at 50 degrees Celsius. Can I sample a cheese in a month without messing up my aging process? Yeah, you can. So just take the wax off, cut a little bit off, taste it. If you haven't got a cheese trier, very hard to use a cheese trier, which is a little probe thing you shove into ripened cheeses, get a bit out, then bung it up again to taste it. But yeah, you'll have to take the wax off, taste a bit. If you think it's okay, then don't need to re-wax it. Or you can wax it for storage in the normal fridge. Yeah, so that's the best way to do it. Don't cut your cheese into quarters or anything like that until it's fully matured. Okay, it matures better when it's in a single block. Okay. Durr says, I love your it. I love your it. Thank you. Right back at you. Jim says, can I cut my wheel into quarters? Oh, I just answered that. Look at that. No, you can't. You should only cut your cheese up after it's matured. It matures a lot better. You get a better fat distribution through the cheese if it's in one solid piece during maturation. Don't cut it beforehand. Okay, well, the time is, we've been going for 55 minutes. If you've got any more questions, then shoot them through. If not, we can call the end of the show. Peter says he always uses an apple corer to sample cheese, and I put the core back in the cheese. Yeah, that's a really simple cheese trier, Peter. That's a great tip. I'd never thought of that. I've actually got an apple corer as well, but you could really only do it with your rind, natural rind cheeses, the ones that don't have wax or vac packed or anything like that. And yeah, by popping a little bit of the rind back in, so taste a little bit on the inside, and pop the thing back in, it'll even out, the fats will distribute properly. Okay, no more questions. We'll call it the end of the show. Thanks for watching episode 40 of Ask the Cheeseman. Really appreciate it. Don't forget, if you want to buy any cheese making supplies, pop over to littlegreenworkshops.com.au. Kim's been putting links through. There are links in the cards up there somewhere to the shop. Also, you can support me and the show. Kim and I are doing this every day by either popping over to Patreon and doing a monthly pledge, or a super chat, which is a little $sign down here. There's still some time left. Or pop over and buy the ebook, Keep Calm and Make Cheese. You can pick it up everywhere on our website, Amazon, iBookstore, you name it, wherever they sell ebooks, you'll see a copy of it. And don't forget to check out the merch link, where you can buy cool things like, not this t-shirt, but this cup, Certified Curd Nerd, aprons, all that sort of cool stuff. And I get a little bit of the proceeds to that, not much. But merch will never make you rich on YouTube. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate your questions. Without your questions, the show doesn't go as smoothly. It's been a nice, clean chat today. Kim's been a great moderator. Give her a round of applause. Thank you, Kim, for helping out with the show, as always. You do a fantastic job there, keeping us all honest and putting links into the show to help us all out. Okay, well, that's it for another week. We will see you next week, same time, 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, which is GMT plus 11. So that's the time zone we're in. So 8 a.m. Our time. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Well, g'day, curd nerds. G'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds.